Thank you for attending today's session, and I'm pleased to invite Mr. Goh Se Tiam, Vice President for Solid Mainstream Engineering, Asia Pacific, to share with all of you about the success story at Johnson Electric, based in China. Now, this is a big win of 621 seats against SolidWorks, and Mr. Goh is part of the Siemens team for this big win. There are valuable lessons to be learned from this big win, and we want to share our experience and our journey with you. So please kindly mute your speaker during the session, and there will be a Q&A session at the end of Mr. Goh's presentations. As we have six partners, as we have partners from the 6 countries for today's session, I will proceed with a roundtable for each country to avoid any confusion for the Q&A session. So let us welcome Mr. Goh for his sharing. Se Tiam, please.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Alvin. So Alvin, as you said, I think today this morning, I guess what we want to do is to share this recent very large SolidWorks replacement win that we have. So what I'll do is I will break in 2 parts on the session first, which talks about why we won this account. So hopefully to be able to interact with all our partners here in Southeast Asia, to see if we will be able to leverage same strategy, and also how we're actually going to migrate them SolidWorks to Solid Edge. Yeah. I think someone needs to mute the phone. Right? Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So let me start by at a high level. So what you will hear, about the Johnson Electric that Alvin mentioned, the reason that we won the account is basically attributed to 2 reasons. There are 2 things that I see where we will be able to go into a SolidWorks, especially even large account base, to be able to replace them. So it's not about our CAD solution is better than SolidWorks or our portfolio is better than SolidWorks. We all know they are basically a very dominant player, right? I'm sure in your market. The main reason is, as I learned in this engagement, the SolidWorks portfolio and their third-party apps, which we all know is their biggest strength, has actually created a big problem for them because it became a barrier for the customer to realize digital transformation because they cannot integrate with Teamcenter. So you will hear me explaining more on that. And then the second thing is about the fact that SolidWorks is pushing towards 3D experience. And I will explain why that is becoming a problem for them. The main issue is really the difference in the kernel being used on the desktop SolidWorks and their cloud version. So that causes data incompatibility, right? Now, so let me go into this particular case. I'm sure everyone come on this call is very eager to understand. As Alvin mentioned, Johnson Electric. Now, in the slides, please understand, we will be sharing this material with you. We are still in the process of working with the customer. We have not got a official, approval from them to do a success story and all that. So I'm just trying to basically be sensitive of it. But if you look at the customer, Johnson Electric, what do? They are basically a motion product control system type business. So in short, if you can see in the picture here, anything to do with this kind of motors, solenoids, which I'm sure in your industry, you can think of customers that is doing this kind of components, right? That's what they do, right? Except Johnson Electric, if you Google up, it's a very big company. They started up from Hong Kong, but they are a very global company today. So when we engaged this opportunity, it was very much with a lot of, their key users, from Hong Kong, from China, from different places that we have to engage with, right? So it was very much treated like an engagement with, a global company. Now, let me go into explaining what is the key factor. And this is something that you guys can think about to take note, right? Where do you find such opportunity back in your country, your region? The first thing is this. We came into this customer back in 2018, right? if you look at the point number one, the key message that when we went in to the customer, it was basically a very familiar slide that you guys have seen. It is about digital twin. It is about digital transformation. I'm sure you guys have heard this many a times from our team, right? In Southeast Asia, from perhaps Alex or, many of our, Siemens colleagues. At that time in 2018, this customer, when you look at the entire digital, twin or this, industry 4.0, they were very focused on the product execution side. They had a problem to solve on the manufacturing execution system side. So they came in, they bought the ChemStar back then. And for us, we're saying, look, if you're trying to complete your digital twin solution, you need to implement ChemStar on top of Teamcenter. So that's one, right? That's where we started the relationship with them. So that's very important. You can lead with a story of basically the whole digital twin over there. And then the second key thing, which is very important to know, is timing, right? Today, they came in when they were implementing the Teamcenter. They needed to integrate to the CAD, obviously SolidWorks, because when in 2018 we picture. Sorry, can someone move I could hear the background noise. Sorry. Yeah. So if you look at the CAD system, we already introduced to them. We have a good solution with NX, with Solid Edge. But at that time, they said, we want to focus on implementing our MES system first, right? And then we'll look into it. So when they looked into it last year, they wanted to actually integrate their SolidWorks to Teamcenter. Number one, they started realizing, wow, it's not cheap. I mean, I have to buy integration for, several hundred users. It's expensive. Number two, their SolidWorks renewal was also coming up. So if you look for customers in your market where the SolidWorks maintenance renewal and they are paying maintenance, maybe they are out of maintenance, right? Maybe 9 months before. We started this engagement in August last year. Their maintenance was due actually last month, right? So if you look at when we engage, this was very top-down driven. It started with more of saying, okay, I can understand the cost is high. Maybe we can offer you a solution. Maybe you can consider Solid Edge. We can obviously work out a attractive financial proposal for you. And they said, interesting. So the management then told the users, right? The engineering department says, please look into Solid Edge. Now, when we went in to do the workshop, please do not for a moment think that this customer the users will welcome you with open arms. I'm sure many of you have experienced. They're using SolidWorks, they're fine. Why should I change, right? So understand the driving force is really top down, right? And when we went in, we did the experience workshop. Okay, they couldn't find that Solid Edge is much better than SolidWorks from a CAD perspective. But they were also not able to say SolidWorks, Solid Edge is bad. You're telling the management, oh, you should throw away this idea of replacing SolidWorks because the Solid Edge has this set of problems and I won't be able to do my job. They could not make such report back to management either. Okay, so what you will find, or in our case here, they started coming back and started asking us questions on, do you have DriveWorks, which is a third-party SolidWorks product configuration solution? And then they said, in my downstream in quality department, we use SolidWorks inspection. Do you have an equivalent software like this? When we got all these emails started to come into us asking for this kind of things, we realized the problem is this SolidWorks MCAD can integrate to Teamcenter. Of course, we can sell them and the price is not cheap. But even if they bought that, they will not be able to integrate the configuration done by DriveWorks or the inspection reports data that were basically generated from SolidWorks inspection. Now, we told them, if you continue to use, you must be prepared that that part will be manual. You got to keep uploading it. It will be time consuming. It will increase your workload. It may have be prone to error, right? And also there will be a lot of maybe manual work to import your design data into your downstream because there's no PMI associativity, right? Then at the same time, they also came back and asked us, interesting, in this a big account, they don't even use SolidWorks simulation. They said, do you support third party? I mean, we have a lot of other external simulation solution. Can you actually support things like Simulation X, JMAC, ANSYS Workbench? The good thing is when I went into all their website, we found that they're saying that they support Solid Edge format, right? So we then went back and said, look, you know what? If you use Solid Edge today, right, which your guy already said from a CAD perspective, you can't say it's that much different from a SolidWorks, but the key differentiator here is it works well with other DI softwares like Bluestream. You in your mold and die department, you use QMS, the quick press, right? But we have saw the NX progressive die also, right? Inspection, we have, even though it's third party, BCT inspector integrates not only with Solid Edge, but with Team Center. So the most important factor here is our Siemens portfolio integrates with Team Center, okay? Now, the second thing to talk about migration, we showed synchronous technology. When you import the SolidWorks model, I will not have features imported, but the key thing is synchronous technology allows you to make edits to that model without the features being imported. So that not only smoothen the data migration, but also speed up for them. So suddenly they also saw, oh, the process can be better actually, right? From maybe not from creating the model, but if I frequently have to make changes to my engineering changes to my model, this will help me, right? So this was the solution. Now, finally, just to summarize, I'm sure all of you are great, experienced business people, great salesmanship. I don't have to kind of go into too much to explain, what kind of salesmanship. What I want to highlight here is this. The salesperson, a lady colleague of ours in China who closed this deal, Lina is her name. She did not come from a background that understood MCAT at all, right? Because she came to us from the mental acquisition family, and she was selling the manufacturing product Valor. So the point is, this can be done, right? Even with someone, who have not really had a lot of in-depth engagement on CAT. In fact, think about it. When we get so close to it that every day we're fighting SolidWorks, we think we're not as good, they have a big market share. I think perhaps sometimes that become our blind spot, right? I think Lina's taught us that. And obviously it wasn't a easy journey for her. As I said, you will face a lot of resistance at the end user. And you got to always remember it's the top-down push. We keep explaining to the decision makers like, the reason you're doing this is you already spent money to build a digital platform. You are doing your journey on digital transformation. If you continue to do this, then that will be kind of create some inefficiency, which really is something you want to consider, right? Now, one more strategy that I mentioned, while this was not used in the Johnson Electric's case, we had many cases of SolidWorks replacement that we did in the first half that I gathered stories from different countries. We realized one of the key things that's happening is that there are several countries that has been telling me that back many, many years, some of the partners here on the call, know me for many years. And in the early days, we said, SolidWorks is going to change their kernel, right? They're going to change from Pyrosolid to CGM, which is the same kernel as CATIA. It's going to create a problem. Their data will not be compatible, all that. That was true, but it wasn't effective because they pushed back and they did not take that route to change the SolidWorks desktop into the CGM kernel. Okay. what they did was they changed strategy. They started to create some products on the cloud called 3D Creator and 3D Sculptor. And what's been happening is I was just on a session with another country yesterday, and they said in their country, SolidWorks has been telling their partners, I want you to, over the next 2 years, to push your customer towards 3D experience, which means they're trying to move them to CGM-based products, right? And so there was some pushback from the users, and therefore they were getting opportunities to come in to start talking and say, is Solid Edge a SolidWorks alternative, right? Now, so Alvin, I don't want to keep talking for so long on the the PowerPoint. I think it's good to have a dialogue, a discussion. I don't know if I should pause here before we go in and talk about how we're going to implement this migration from SolidWorks to Solid Edge. What do you think, Alvin? Should we pause to get some, maybe there are some questions coming from the portion I just presented on why we won?
Setiam, because this is a big crowd, so
Yeah.
we're going country by country later on. So I will recommend
Okay.
you proceed first.
Sure.
Then we leave the Q&A for the last session.
Okay, good. So everyone please just bear with me for maybe another 10 more minutes, and then I will pause for a question. And then if time permits, I can also show you guys a version of customer-facing presentation that perhaps you could use later on. So let me continue. Alvin, just to check, my audio is okay, right? It's coming across loud and clear?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. So let's talk about the second part. Now that if you understood the strategy that I mentioned earlier on why the SolidWorks would move to Solid Edge, the next big questions we will get before they give you the order is they need to understand how are you going to successfully move me from SolidWorks to Solid Edge. And this I have Alvin to thank, right? Alvin has been helping to gather a lot of information, but we were able to converge and realize that not only in Johnson Electric or in some of the customers that we have worked on, and all across different parts of Southeast Asia or Asia Pacific, in Taiwan, our very successful Solid Edge partner, the approach seems to all be the same, which is, remember, when you go in and engage the customer and explain how you're going to bring them from SolidWorks to Solid Edge, it is not like implementing a team center or an MES system like ChemStar type where you said, I will charge you X number of man days. It's like an implementation services. You have a small group of people and then we will implement for you. That's not going to be how this will work for the customer. It will not be a good outcome for them if they did that, because it needs to be an approach about enabling the customer's key user. Important. Key users, that's the word, right? Meaning it needs to be an approach that train the expert and their trainer. Why? Because this will help them build capabilities internally and be self-sufficient, because they will then be able to support, the key users will then be able to support all their users if they have some questions that come up along the way on their day-to-day tasks on Solid Edge. That will always be there at the initial stage. Second, to implement the data migration. And then third, if we do training for them, they will be able to do some customizations themselves. Some of our customers do that, right? Now, in order to do so, they must agree to commit that the resources we need from you, Mr. Customer, is you must identify some key users at the company level, if it is a big company, right? Because typically that 2 or 3 key users at the company level will be to support the department key users and be the key contact back to you, right? Or basically the technical team, because as we are implementing, they will communicate with us or we communicate back with them. In the case of Johnson Electric, they identified no more than 3, even though it was more than 600 seats in the phase 1 of implementation. And we have another 4,400 more to do after that. They identified 1 to 2 users per department, because this is to support each department. In the case of Johnson Electric, of course, they are big. I mean, we were shocked. They came back with 50 departments, 2% each. So that's 100 key users. You would now understand why we need company level key users, because we can never be able to communicate effectively with 100 people, right? All at one time. So that's why. Now, an important thing is once you have alignment on this, is we have a 3-step process to take that journey from SolidWorks to Solid Edge. Step 1 is to learn Solid Edge. Now, many of you will probably be doing this already. I myself, when I first started, we won this deal, I was happy maybe for a day, and I said, there's many work to be done here, right? So I went around, we looked, and we asked. Good thing for this Johnson Electric, the team doing it, I'm very comfortable. I sleep well at night because they've got all the assets and things they need. So in learning Solid Edge, at first my mindset was thinking, oh, this is training a group of users that are very experienced with SolidWorks. You can't teach them as though they don't know Solid Edge. I was wrong. Because actually what you want to do at the start is to tell them, please come in with no baggage, right? Don't think about SolidWorks or whatever, because what we need you to understand is afresh how Solid Edge actually works as a software. What's the UI, UX look like, the features, the function. And later I will show you guys the structure of the training. So we're recommending like a 4 days of classroom training, which is quite typical for us in Southeast Asia. We do training on customer side, right? Now, there are also online learning material that we do provide. I mean, Alvin definitely, when he works with you guys, will be able to share much more. In fact, Alvin knows this area much better than I do. The second step is the most important, is adapt. After you learn, you need to adapt. You need to adapt how you're going to move from SolidWorks to Solid Edge. In here, I will later show a few slides on each of the details of the step. But in here, it's not about 1 full month of engagement, but you need to have a constant engagement that let them understand what are the common workflows that they do in SolidWorks and how they will be able to accomplish those tasks in Solid Edge. That's the objective of this second step. And then finally, the last step is to migrate, right? So in here, it's about teaching them the migration tool. Migrating is not like a one-time affair. You don't want to do big bang. You go department by department. You select what's critical project. It's all about setting the expectation. We'll talk about it in a minute. But that's kind of how you do it. So let me go into each one of the steps, okay? So as I mentioned, learning is 4 full days. So how did we do it in this Johnson Electric? I mean, you can take a look. It is basically from weather materials that you have. We also have a lot of set of materials from our side, but you would arrange it into a set of trainings like this over 4 days. But what it is all these 4 days, it's about, if I were to go back, you look at the bottom blue banner, it is to teach all these capabilities of Solid Edge, how the interface, the command works. Once you learn this, you have a grasp of how you would use Solid Edge to design a product in 3D. That's what this is, right? Now, and I believe many of you already have this. So you'll be surprised. It's like, oh yeah, well, that's no different from what I'm doing. Yes. So now here comes the key ingredient. So in the second step, it's about saying, now that we've taught you, that's not all, right? Because we know when you get back to your workstation, you're going to start working and you'll start thinking, wait, I used to do a sketch like this in SolidWorks. How do I do it in Solid Edge? What you want to do at this point is to ask them, hey, can you give me what is the top 5 work that you do, right? Let me understand your workflow in SolidWorks. And then what we do is we return back with the demos, videos. Show them, here's how you do it in Solid Edge. The point is not side-by-side comparison, but it's to navigate. It's like you imagine if today, let's say I'm not trying to say Android or app, iOS is better, but assuming you move from one to another, what you want to do is to focus not back on the previous mobile phone OS, but on the new one that you now have on your hand. How would I do the settings? How do I go in there and get to the contact? How do I do this? How do I do that? And I think over time, I've read basically a report before, is somebody do something for continuously for 5 days, that habit would change. Because on day one, he's going to say, oh, this is tough, this is bad. I'm not saying, to convince you guys that, to push them. What I'm saying is, if you use this methodology, it would help them adapt in a more pleasant manner, right? And like in the case, we are going to start compiling a lot of these videos. That's what is a journey for us as well as Siemens. We're going to learn and build, but we will work along the way. I'm sure with Sean, with Elvin, and I also have a whole team of people, we will help, right? If we go after this kind of, customer base in SolidWorks, we will help, right? And I have confidence we can get them across. I've seen it happen. And then thirdly, on migration, my final point on migration is about setting expectation, right? You cannot migrate 100%. There is no magic wand. I have a data migration tool, yes, but that's going to migrate the drawings and the models. You will not get to.
Setiam, I lost you, Setiam. Setiam, no voice coming from your side. Setiam, can you hear me? Sorry guys, I think Setiam have some connection problem. Please hold on for a while. Yeah, Setiam, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why suddenly it like connecting. So I thought it was everybody else. Sorry. So Elvin, can you tell me where did I
At the migration part, the data migration slide.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I think the data
Can you share
migration.
your screen again? Your screen disappeared.
Okay, I think I just did share my screen again. Let me know if it's coming up.
Not yet.
It says I'm presenting. Let me know.
Yep.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can see your screen.
All right. Sure. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Okay. So what I'm saying is migration. Maybe where I got cut off is saying that look, the understand that in any migration it won't be 100%. There may be certain parts, especially on the drawing side, maybe some automation needs to be done. We need to work together, right? But I think in general, if we work on the approach that hey, it's department by department, focus on what's most critical to you, the models, the drawings, we migrate that across, and then we need to work with you so you understand how this files works in SolidEdge environment. I think that will be the approach, right? Okay, so let me finish up with another 3 more slides. Now, we want to encourage everybody to say, look, where does this strategy lead to? Because I think all of us have been very familiar. If you look at I pulled this from their report, right? What I'm trying to highlight on the top of the financial number. Today, SolidWorks is still a big revenue stream for Dassault. In fact, their CATIA and all this Innovia, all these are slowing down. If you read Siemens data, they basically claim also that what they call multidiscipline CAD in their terminology is actually referring to, let's say, a CATIA type product. It's basically slowing down, right? The growth is coming from the mainstream side of CAD solution, and therefore it's also shown for their SolidWorks. And thankfully for us in the time of pandemic, even we did pretty well ourselves, right? Whether it was last year, we did not decline. This year, we also did. So today's call is not about trying to tell you, our performance. But I think the second thing is to focus on this chart at the bottom. 2016 was the last time that SolidWorks stepped out into the open and presented to analysts, to investors about their business. The CEO presented this slide. If you guys Google up SolidWorks Capital Day, you would see the presentation. And in one of the slides, they basically said 90% of our customers are less than 5 seats. We all know that. I think that's what we do day to day, right? But the interesting thing is they no longer account for majority of their revenue because 50% of their seat count only come from 90% of their customer base. Where is the other 50%? 9% of those come from 9% of the customer, or 30% of their revenues or seats come from 6 to 20 seats. And another about 1 to 1.5%, which accounts for 20% of their seat count or revenue, come from 20 seats and above. Which tells me that now we have finally, I feel with Johnson Electric, we kind of cracked the code here. We found what was their strength became their weakest link because their portfolio was not integrated to Teamcenter and therefore could not realize the entire digital transformation for the customer. So this is a domino effect. If we just spend a percentage of our time to go after the larger accounts, even a few, one or two, you create the lighthouse account. Suddenly, whether it's the 6 to 20 seats or the 1 to 5 seat camp or SolidWorks will start thinking, wait a minute, did the 20 seat guys or more know something we didn't? So why are they moving out of SolidWorks to Solid Edge? Let's look into it. I think that inflection point is probably going to be starting to come, and they will accelerate that point if they keep pushing this 1 to 5 seats or all these three categories of customers towards their 3D experience, right? Just like I said, in Johnson Electric, there were no motivation for them because they were not unhappy with using SolidWorks, right? I mean, they were contemplating, I have to pay a lot of money for the maintenance renewal, right? Should I actually do that, right? Okay. Sorry, I think Alvin, I think it says there are people waiting at the lobby.
I've admitted them already. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Don't worry, I'll take care of that. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so now let me finish up with two slides that I have. So my summary is this. It's not about today, this 30-minute session, hopefully it's useful and, kind of motivating for you guys to say, well, this is amazing, that we win something this big. I think the key thing is, I believe it can be done over on your side in your country. Because if you start identifying the SolidWorks account more than 20 seats, because we don't know who they are, right? I mean, we could go by the database, but I think you know better where they are. And you ask the question, are they currently a Teamcenter customer? Doesn't matter if they are not. I mean, we can later talk about what do we talk to them about if they are not Teamcenter customers. We want to find out if their SolidWorks portfolio, if they're using a lot of that or third-party apps today. And most importantly, is your that identified SolidWorks user with more than 20 seats maintenance renewal coming up? Because that's your key timing point. Without that timing point, we would never be able to do anything. Take Johnson Electric, even if they were keen to do that, but we went in and engaged when they just renewed the maintenance. Then we got to come back 3 years later because they will not fork out another sum of money to go do that, right? Because if that maintenance renewal is coming up, you're competing for that wallet. Are they going to give it to you or are they going to renew the SolidWorks? That's the question, right? So I think that's the key. And I think if you uncover that they're using several SolidWorks add-on apps, be it their SolidWorks own portfolio or third party, then your chances of leveraging this value prop is a lot higher because their add-on apps simply don't integrate to Teamcenter, period. It's not about their MCAT. Let me repeat. MCAT integrates. But if the portfolio doesn't integrate and Mr. Customer, you are using the portfolio, then what's the point? That means you are having a digital platform and then you've got an island of other things that sits out somewhere. Is that what you want, right? So if that's not what you want, then really you want to start thinking about that strategy because they're starting to push people towards 3D experience. Maybe not now in your country, but certainly things are happening, right? So that's where we are. So I think if you identify the account, I mean, we are here to help you, right? The team from Siemens is here to help you. We will definitely work closely with you on the solution strategy, right? My final slide here is based on what I have said, other than the call to action, I think when you're engaging into the account, what you want to look out for or things to look out for in the sales engagement, push for it. Tell them, yeah, let's do an experience workshop. The point of the experience workshop is not to prove that our CAD is better than SolidWorks CAD, right? Don't go in with that expectation. But the objective is to neutralize because we're not going to be better than them. The users won't probably see that, even if you tell them synchronous. But they're not going to have strong weaknesses to point out on Solid Edge, which is what you want to achieve. Because remember, we're selling top-down because the users will resist. Therefore, you need to build R&D management relationship, right? Now, before you go in, you need to think about what you need to prepare. And if you don't have that, please reach out to us. One, you want to obviously have the workshop material. And then the classroom training material that I talked about in the implementation. There are self-paced training content. We have that. We may not have it in some of the Southeast Asia languages, but I think we can certainly try to work things out there. And then finally, the videos that I talked about. That's very important for the second step, to adapt, to explain to them, this is how you were doing things in SolidWorks. Here's how we do things in Solid Edge, right? So Alvin, with that, I kind of conclude my presentation. So maybe, yeah, I'll let you facilitate to see if you want to open up for questions.